Hey everybody, it's time for Chapter 2 of the Patchwork Girl of Oz. I am again reading in my van while I wait on my middle munchkin to get out of gymnastics, because at 8 o'clock tonight I'll be at church and I won't be home to read to you. So we're going to go through this real quick. We're going to read Chapter 2. If you recall, last night, Ojo and Unc Nunky are the characters we were introduced to. They have no food. They are poor farmers in Munchkin Land, and they're out of food. And so they went to bed, but they talked about a crooked magician that lived in a castle to the north. And tonight's chapter is called The Crooked Magician, so I imagine we're going to meet him. Let's find out. Just at dawn the next morning, Unc Nunky laid his hand tenderly on Ojo's head and awakened him. "Come," he said. Ojo dressed. He wore blue silk stockings, blue knee pants with gold buckles, and a blue ruffled waist, and a jacket of bright blue braided with gold. His shoes were of blue leather and were turned up at the toes, which were pointed. His hat had a peaked crown and a flat brim, and around the brim was a row of tiny golden bells that tinkled when he moved. This was the native costume of those who inhabited the Munchkin country of the Land of Oz, so Unc Nunky's dress was much like that of his nephew. Instead of shoes, the old man wore boots with turnover tops, and his blue coat had wide cuffs of gold braid. The boy noticed that his uncle had not eaten the bread, and supposed the old man had not been hungry. Ojo was hungry, though, so he divided the piece of bread upon the table and ate his half for breakfast, washing it down with fresh, cool water from the brook. Unc put the other piece of bread in his jacket pocket, after which he again said, as he walked through the doorway, "Come." Ojo was well pleased. He was dreadfully tired of living all alone in the woods, wanted to travel and see people. For a long time he had wished to explore the beautiful Land of Oz in which they lived. When they were outside, Unc simply latched the door and started up the path. No one would disturb their little house, even if anyone came so far into the thick forest while they were gone. At the foot of a mountain that separated the country of the Munchkins from the country of the Gillikins, the path divided. One way led left and the other to the right, straight up the mountain. Unc Nunky took this right-hand path, and Ojo followed without asking why. He knew it would take them to the house of the Crooked Magician, whom he had never seen, but who was their nearest neighbor. All the morning they trudged up the mountain path, and at noon Unc and Ojo sat on a fallen tree trunk and ate the last of the bread which the old Munchkin had placed in his pocket. Then they started on again, and 2 hours later came in sight of the house of Dr. Pipt. It was a big house, round as were all Munchkin houses, and painted blue, which is the distinctive color of the Munchkin country of Oz. There was a pretty garden around the house, where blue trees and blue flowers grew in abundance, and in one place were beds of blue cabbages, blue carrots, and blue lettuce, all of which were delicious to eat. In Dr. Pipt's garden grew bun trees, cake trees, cream puff bushes, blue buttercups, which yielded excellent blue butter, and a row of chocolate caramel plants. Paths of blue gravel divided the vegetable and flower beds, and a wider path led up to the front door. The place was in a clearing on the mountain, but a little way off was the grim forest which completely surrounded it. Unc knocked at the door of the house, and a chubby, pleasant-faced woman, dressed all in blue, opened it and greeted the visitors with a smile. "Ah," said Ojo, "you must be Dame Margolette, the good wife of Dr. Pipt." "I am, my dear, and all strangers are welcome to my home." "May we see the famous magician, madame?" "He is very busy just now," she said, shaking her head doubtfully. "But come in and let me give you something to eat, for you must have traveled far in order to get to our lovely place." "We have," replied Ojo, as he and Unc entered the house. "We have come from a far lonelier place than this." "A lonelier place, and in Munchkin country," she exclaimed. "It must be somewhere in the Blue Forest." "It is, good Dame Margolette." "Dear me," she said, looking at the man. "You must be Unc Nunky, known as the Silent One." Then she looked at the boy. "You must be Ojo the Unlucky," she added. "Yes," said Unc. "I never knew I was called the Unlucky," said Ojo soberly. "But it is really a good name for me." "Well," remarked the woman, as she bustled around the room and set the table and brought food from the cupboard, "you were unlucky to live all alone in that dismal forest, which is much worse than the forest around here. But perhaps your luck will change now that you are away from it. If during your travels you can manage to lose that un at the beginning of your name, Unlucky, then you will become Ojo the Lucky, which will be a great improvement. And how can I lose that un de Margolette? I do not know how, but you must keep the matter in mind. Perhaps the chance will come to you, she replied. Ojo had never eaten such a fine meal in all his life. There was a savory stew, smoking hot, a pile of blue peas, a bowl of sweet milk, and a delicate blue tint, and a blue pudding with blue plums in it. When the visitors had eaten heartily of this fare, the woman said to him, "Do you wish to see Dr. Pipt on business or for pleasure?" Unc shook his head. "We are traveling," replied Ojo, "and we stopped at your house just to rest and refresh ourselves. I do not think Unc Nunkie cares very much to see the famous crooked magician, but for my part I am curious to look at such a great man." The woman seemed thoughtful. "I remember that Unc Nunkie and my husband used to be friends many years ago," she said, "so perhaps they will be glad to meet again. The magician is very busy, as I said, but if you will promise not to disturb him, you may come into his workshop and watch him prepare a wonderful charm." "Thank you," replied the boy, much pleased. "I would like to do that." She led the way to a great domed hall at the back of the house, which was the magician's workshop. There was a row of windows extending nearly around the sides of the circular room, which rendered the place very light, and there was a back door in addition to the one leading to the front part of the house. Before the row of windows was a broad seat was built, and there were some chairs and benches in the room besides. At one end stood a great fireplace in which a blue log was blazing with a blue flame, and over the fire hung 4 kettles in a row, all bubbling and steaming at a great rate. The magician was stirring all 4 of these kettles at the same time, 2 with his hands and 2 with his feet to the latter wooden ladles being strapped. For this man was so very crooked that his legs were as handy as his arms. Unc Nunkie came forward to greet his old friend, but not being able to shake either his hands or his feet, which were all occupied in stirring, he patted the magician's bald head and asked, "What?" "Ah, it is the Silent One," remarked Dr. Pipt, without looking up, "and he wants to know what I'm making. Well, when it is quite finished, this compound will be the wonderful powder of life, which no one knows how to make but myself. Whenever it is sprinkled on anything, that thing will come to life no matter what it is. It takes me several years to make this magic powder. At this moment I am very pleased to say it is nearly done, you see. I am making it for my good wife Margolette, who wants to use some of it for a purpose of her own. Sit down and make yourself comfortable, Unc Nunkie, and after I've finished my task I will talk to you." "You must know," said Margolette, when they were all seated together on the broad window seat, "that my husband foolishly gave away all the powder of life he made to the old woman Mombi the Witch, who used to live in the country of the Gillikins to the north of here. Mombi gave to Dr. Pipt powder of perpetual youth in exchange for his powder of life, but she cheated him wickedly, for the powder of youth was no good and could not work any magic at all." "Perhaps the powder of life couldn't either," said Ojo. "Yes, it is perfection," she declared. "The first lot we tested on our glass cat, which not only began to live, but has lived ever since. She's somewhere around the house now." "A glass cat!" exclaimed Ojo, astonished. "Yes, she makes a very pleasant companion, and admires herself a little more than is considered modest. But she positively refuses to catch mice," exclaimed Margolette. "My husband made the cat some pink brains, but they proved to be too high-bred and particular for a cat, so she thinks it's undignified in her to catch mice. Also, she has a pretty blood-red heart, but it's made of stone, a ruby, I think, and so is rather hard and unfeeling. I think the next glass cat the magician makes will have neither brains nor heart, for then it will not object to catching mice and may prove of some use to us." "What did old Mombi the Witch do with the powder of life your husband gave her?" asked the young boy. "She brought Jack Pumpkinhead to life, for one thing," was the reply. "I suppose you've heard of Jack Pumpkinhead. He's now living near the Emerald City and is a great favorite with the Princess Ozma, who rules all the land of Oz." "No, I've never heard of him," remarked Ojo. I'm afraid I don't know much about the land of Oz, you see. I've lived all my life with Unc Nunkie, the silent one, and there was no one to tell me anything." "That is one reason you're Ojo the Unlucky," said the woman in a sympathetic tone. "The more one knows, the luckier he is, for knowledge is the greatest gift in life. But tell me, please, what you intend to do with this new lot of the powder of life which Dr. Pipt is making. He said his wife wanted it for some special purpose." "So I do," she answered. "I want it to bring my Patchwork Girl to life." "Oh, a Patchwork Girl, what is that?" Ojo asked, for this seemed even more strange and unusual than a glass cat. "I think I must show you my Patchwork Girl," said Margolette, laughing at the boy's astonishment, for she is rather difficult to explain. "But first I'll tell you that for many years I have longed for a servant to help me with the housework and to cook the meals and wash the dishes. No servant will come live here because the place is so lonely and out of the way. So my clever husband, the Crooked Magician, proposed that I make a girl out of some sort of material, and he would make her live by sprinkling over her the powder of life. This seemed an excellent suggestion, and at once Dr. Pipt set to work to make a new batch of his magic powder. He's been at it for a long, long while, and so I've had plenty of time to make the girl. Yet that task was not so easy as you may suppose. First I couldn't think what to make her of, but finally, in searching through a chest, I came across an old patchwork quilt which my grandmother once made when she was young." "What is a patchwork quilt?" asked Ojo. "A bed quilt made of patches of different kinds and colors of cloth, all neatly sewed together. The patches are of all shapes and sizes, so a patchwork quilt is a very pretty and gorgeous thing to look at. Sometimes it's called a crazy quilt, because the patches and colors are so mixed up. We never have used my grandmother's many-colored patchwork quilt, handsome as it is, for we Munchkins do not care for any color other than blue, so it has been packed away in the chest for about 100 years. When I found it, I said to myself that it would do nicely for my servant girl, for when she was brought to life she would not be proud nor haughty, as the glass cat is. Such a dreadful mixture of colors would discourage her from trying to be as dignified as the blue Munchkins are." "Is blue the only respectable color, then?" inquired Ojo. "Yes, for a Munchkin. All our country's blue, you know, but in other parts of Oz people have different colors. In the Emerald City, where our Princess Ozma lives, green's the popular color, but all the Munchkins prefer blue to anything else. When my housework girl is brought to life, she will find herself to be so many unpopular colors, she'll never dare to be rebellious or impudent, as servants are sometimes liable to be when they're made the same way as their mistresses are." Unc Nunkie nodded approval. "Good idea," he said, and that was a long speech for Unc Nunkie because it was 2 words. "So I cut up the quilt," continued Margolette, "made from it a very well-shaped girl which I stuffed with cotton wadding. I will show you what a good job I did." And she went into the hall cupboard and threw open the doors. Then back she came, lugging in her arms the Patchwork Girl, which sat upon the bench and propped up so that the figure would not tumble over. And that's the end of Chapter 2, The Crooked Magician. Tomorrow night, Facebook Live, 8 o'clock, we're going to read Chapter 3. It's entitled... Oh, there's my thumb. Hi, everybody. Tomorrow night's chapter is Chapter 3. It's entitled The Patchwork Girl. So I assume we're going to meet the Patchwork Girl. I hope you join us then. Good night, everyone.